Students, Mrs. Hill again, and we are now on tutorial 8 where we're talking about developing an Excel application. So what I plan to do in this tutorial or this video is we're going to talk a little bit about tutorial 8, how to develop an application, what they're used for, the purposes behind those. Then we're going to cover on the video, we're going to do review assignment 1 on page EX 475, and it goes over to 476. So before we get started, let's kind of talk about what is an Excel application. So basically an Excel application is nothing but a spreadsheet that has a job or an application. And you might be saying, well, what's the difference between that and any spreadsheet that we make? And really there's not a lot, except that the applications that we're talking about are developed to actually perform specific jobs that happen repetitively. And a lot of times when we develop an application, we are developing it for someone else to fill out or for someone else to use. So that's what they're really kind of getting at here in the application. Tutorial 8 is nowhere near as complex as tutorial 7, so this shouldn't take a real long time. So let's go ahead and kind of get started, and before I go right into the review exercise, if you look on page 420, and I'll give you just a second to get there, it kind of shows you this first part of chapter 8, or they call it session 8.1, and really this whole thing is about defined names. And really a defined name, and we don't use these a lot unless you're really proficient with Excel and do this a lot, but defined names are, all they are is just naming a cell. Instead of saying B4 or C4 or D4, we actually give it a name. For example, in the spreadsheet you're looking at, B4, the name of that cell right here in the name box where it says B4, we can actually name that date. And really the only purpose for that is just to help us. It's to help the user kind of figure out, you know, what are we using here, or what's an easier way to remember cells. Because if I tell you to look at a spreadsheet and I say, okay, B412, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, where's that at? But if I say instead the next year's birthday, and that happens to be what's in B412, that's going to make a lot more sense to you or whoever you're talking to than just saying B412. So honestly, from my experience, I really don't use defined names a lot. Sometimes I do, but not very often. But if you're accounting or finance majors, this is something that you're going to need, and go ahead and just use it, get used to it. You know, it's a good thing. It just takes, like anything, you just have to learn to use it before you get proficient at it. So that said, and then 8.2, it talks about validation rules, and that's a great way to help people fill out Excel spreadsheets, help people that may not be so familiar with Excel or what you're trying to achieve with your spreadsheet. It helps them fill the spreadsheet out. Then the last part is, who knew you were going to do a little programming in here? It's an easy way to write a program. And that's called a macro, and we're actually going to do a macro for this exercise, and I'll show you a little bit more about it. But macros are a really cool way to do things that you do on a repetitive basis. This is a really cool way where you can just record what you do, kind of like what I'm doing now, and you can just press a button and have Excel do this for you. So anybody can write a macro. It's super easy. We're going to, like I said, we'll do that here, and I'll kind of walk you through it, and we'll go from there. So let's go over to 475, and let's look at the Reynolds workbook. And just like we always do before we get started, let's figure out what we're looking at, because if you don't do that step, and if you've had me before in class, you know that's what I say, figure it out. Take a look at it first before you jump into anything. Especially with this textbook, we're not going to get a step-by-step thing like in the other textbooks. You have to know the context of your worksheet. So it says here, and I'm just reading straight from the book, you did such a good job helping Ellen with the community theater application that she recommended you to a friend who has a similar project. Ellen's friend wants to create an invoice system for his new car rental company, Eugene Discount Car Rental. Complete the following. So let's look here. We've got our documentation worksheet like we always do. And our purpose is to prepare a customer bill for a car rental. So let's look over here, customer. And so here's what we got. Obviously, this is where we're going to spend the majority of our time. Our rental inputs, our customer name, the type of car, number of days rented, number of miles driven, that's not hard. Then our rental rates. So you've got charge per day or charge per mile. So what I'm guessing is if you're the customer, you can either choose to pay by the day or by the mile, or it may be a combination of both. I'm not sure how the book's got this set up. Then you've got your tax rate, good times there. And then over here on the right hand side you've got your bill. Now this is actually what the customer would see, or what we're probably going to be working with our macros as well. So this would be your name, the type of car, days rented, miles driven, charge per day, charge per mile, then your tax and amount due. So this is just a really easy example. What I would suggest before you start on this with me is work through your chapter first. It's got a lot more of this and it's way more involved, but it's going to help you, and you need that before you start on this, because it does guide you step by step. And if you're not reading the chapter, you're really missing out on a lot of what you need. And most of the questions that I'm getting are things that are being answered in the chapter, but you just have to look a little bit. And I understand it's frustrating, and I understand this is a really difficult subject, especially if you're learning online, but just be patient, keep asking me questions, but don't be offended if I give you a page number, because lots of times the page number is going to be way better than I could explain to you over email. And also remember, I have office hours. Come and see me. If you have a question, those of you that have came to see me, you know I'll sit down with you and we'll work it out. So anyway, let's get back to the exercise. And it says we want to save the worksheet as discount rentals. So I'm just going to do a file and save as. And I'm just going to put mine on my desktop. And I always like to put my name on anything I do. That's your choice. I wouldn't count it wrong if you didn't name it the same way. It's all the same. Okay, it says in documentation worksheet, enter your name and the date. So you can go with my name here. And the date. Also, this is really funny, and of course we're all guilty of doing it. I've done it too. A lot of times students, when they see right here where it says author and the book says enter your name, they will actually type your name instead of their name. And I'm sure it's just an overlook on their part, but it is kind of funny sometimes. So just thought I'd throw that in there. I've done it too. I do things like that all the time. So all right, number 3. In the customer worksheet, define names for the cells as follows. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work down through here. Now your book provides a couple different ways to do this, as in all Excel applications, or Microsoft for that matter. But my favorite way to do it is I just like to click on the cell, for example B4, and I just go up here and type customer and press enter. You can press tab. I think you can do your arrows. There's all kinds of ways to do it, but this just works for me. B5. Remember, when you're entering these in, you cannot put spaces between the words. You can use an underscore. Whoops, that was silly. I already messed up. Let me delete that. You can put an underscore between the words if you want. And to get an underscore, if anybody ever, I did it again, guys. I can't talk and do this at the same time. If you're looking for an underscore, that is the shift, and it's the button to the right of the 0 will give you the underscore. Okay, let me finish up here really quick with the, we want H9. Then we want H10. if you hear any background noise, I'm actually at home today, and they're harvesting this weekend, so you're probably hearing combines and tractors and all kinds of things going by the house, so just try to ignore that. I don't think the background, I think I can go in and edit it out if it's too bad. So um, let's go. Now you can also A12 through C16. You can also name ranges, which is pretty cool to me. Instead of an individual cell, you can name this whole range, and what they're going to name it as rental rates, which really, that's a pretty awesome way to do things. And that, instead of, implying a single cell, you're saying the whole range of cells are the rental rates. And that gives you a really nice way to refer to a group of cells. Okay. Alright, so all that's done. Alright, then it says on step 4, create the validation rules for B5, B6, and B7 shown in figure 836. Alright, so what I'm going to do is we're going to do some validation rules here. If you're looking for that in your book, because honestly, I'm always checking back in the chapter 2 to make, not chapter 2, but in the tutorial. I always like to do that just to turn back and make sure I'm right, and then sometimes I forget a few steps. So I know that's impossible to believe that I would actually forget, but if you've been my student before, again, you know this. So that starts on page 438. So that's going to be the part of the book there that you want to refer to. Let me grab something to mark that page. Okay. Alright, so it says for cell B5. Okay. The validation rule here says we want this to be a list source. So they'll actually be able to choose the type of car. And they're going to choose the type of car, looks like from A12 to A16. So, and then that is right there in that list. So to do that, we want to go up to the Data tab and just click. I'd made the mistake of clicking on the bottom part, which I guess is the same way, but just click on the top part. You don't have to drop that arrow down. And it says on this one, we want to choose a list source. Now this is one of these great things. I'm sure we've all used Excel spreadsheets that have the drop down list, but we just don't know how to put them in there. This is just the easiest way that I've found. And this is where we tell people how to use our worksheets. This is where we can say, here's how you do this, here's what needs to be input here, and also make sure they don't mess it up, because we can specify what has to be in there and the formatting and all that fun stuff. So if it's not done the way we like it, it gives them that great big error message, and you can either say, stop, you cannot fix this, or you cannot move on until you fix this, or you can give them a warning, or whatever you choose to do. So just a really cool tool that a lot of people don't know about. So you guys can wow people at parties with this information. Okay, the list is what we're going to choose. Then it says, what's the source, or where are we getting the list from? The book's going to tell you to use this expand and collapse arrow. Now this, I'm just throwing this in there. If you click on that, a lot of people panic because they're like, oh my gosh, the rest is gone. Nothing to panic about, and really you don't even need to do that with this small data sheet. The only purpose of this is to give you a better view of the sheet. But I'm going to click this button again and expand it, but really you can just drag this around wherever you want. So anyway, but that's your own choice. So our source is going to be A12 through A16. And we want to leave the ignore blank and the in cell drop down. We like the in cell drop down because that just gives that little list there. The input message, our title is going to be called type of car. And then our message says click arrow to select the type of car. Okay. Then our error alert, this is where, if they don't do it the right way or they screw something up, this is where we actually say, hold on a second. And this one, the book says, is a stop error alert, which means they can't move on until they do it correctly. The title is going to be invalid type. The error message is invalid type, use arrow to select type. Okay, and we can click OK on that one. So now we have this cute little arrow right there. Isn't that awesome? See? Learning stuff all the time. Then it says for B6, we're going to do another one of these, data validation. And our settings here is we want this to be a whole number between 1 and 29. So here in the allow box, drop this down and we want a whole number and we want it to be between 1 and 29. Now if you had numbers, you could also choose, instead of typing the number 1 in here, you could also choose a cell reference. You could even say between $39 and $58 if that made sense. But they do give you the option to do that, and there are times when that's necessary, but not really with what we're doing here. But that option is there. Anytime you see those little expand and collapse buttons there, that's kind of what they're for. So the input message, our type is number of days rented. Whoops. And the input message is enter a whole number between 1 and 29. Alright, and then our error alert on this one is going to be, instead of a stop, it's just going to be a warning. And the title is warning days rented. And invalid entry, enter whole number between 1 and 29. Okay. Now if they enter any more than 20 or rent more than 29 days, I'm not sure what the book has in mind, but that's something you would decide as the developer of the application here. Then one more on B7, data validation here, and this is going to be another of the between value. So we're going to choose, and it needs to be a whole number between 1 and 5,000. Hopefully they're not driving our cars more than 5,000 miles. But and the title on that one is going to be number of miles driven, and it says enter a whole number between 1 and 5,000. And on this one, this is going to be a warning. And the title is Warning Miles. And this is going to say invalid entry. Enter a value between 1 and 5,000. Okay. Alright, so we've got those three done. Okay, then it says we're going to do, in step 5, enter formulas based on the following using the defined names you created in step 3 to calculate the rental bill. So let's go here to F6, and it says F6 is equal to the value in cell B4. So I'm just going to type equals B4 and press enter. Cell F7 is equal to the value in B5. Okay, cell F9 is equal to the value in B6. Cell F10 is equal to the value in B7. Okay, then it says cell H9, so let's skip over here, is equal to the charge per day, which depends on the type of car entered in cell B5 and the rate table. And it says hint, use the VLOOKUP function. So let's take a look here. We need to find H9 is equal to the charge per day. So if we look over here on the left hand side, the charge per day depends on what? The car, right? So depending on a compact or a minivan, these are the charges per day. So this is a really easy VLOOKUP function to do. So what we're going to do, it says it wants us to look at cell B5 to get what the type of car rented is. So I'm going to go up to formulas and VLOOKUP. Alright, the lookup value, just like the book says and I mentioned, is going to be cell B5, and that's type car. And you notice how when I clicked on B5 it used the name that we had defined earlier. The table array is just going to be these cells here, A12 through B16, and I think it's good practice just to make that an absolute value. Now in this case, you know, we're not dragging it down or using the fill handle, but just as good, like I said, good practice, put that absolute value in there so you don't forget it. And then our column index number, we are looking at the second column right here of information because we chose our whole table as these two columns here. And then I'm going to click OK. Alright, now let's see, it says value not available error. So let me put, I think what they're saying is I don't have anything in there first. So let me just put compact. Okay, there we go, because that, hopefully you saw that. It had NA in there like it was an error, but the reason it was an error was because I didn't have anything in there right now. So what I did was I just went up and chose a compact car so that it would go ahead and populate and not scare me to death. So okay, next one, cell H10 is equal to the charge per mile, which depends on the type of car entered in cell B5 and the rate table. So again, we're going to look at cell B5, type of car, and then again same rate table and find the charge per mile. And again, the hint, the VLOOKUP table. So this is going to look very similar. So we're going to use VLOOKUP. Our lookup value once again is B5. Our table array, now on this one we're going to choose, let's just go ahead and choose all three columns, just because in this case it really, in your VLOOKUP you can choose as many columns as you want. But the great part about the function is you're telling it what to use and what not to use. So we're just going to go ahead and select all of them, and at this time we're just going to say it's in column 3. And that's from first column, second column, third column, and since this is what we're looking for in the question, the charge per mile, that's why we put number 3 there. And you can tell it's kind of giving us a preview, 23 cents, and that's definitely what we want. So let's click OK. Alright, perfect. Alright, so looks like we're almost halfway there. Okay, so let's flip over, and on page 476 at the top it says cell F12 is equal to the rental amount, which equals the number of days rented multiplied by the charge per day plus the miles driven multiplied by the charge per mile. So what we're going to do here, we're going to have to think about our order of operations just a little bit because we've got some different multiplication and addition in here. So what I'm going to do, and this is how I would do it, and I hope you know I'm not, if I mess up here, I'm working through it on the screen, so I'm not pretending to do this because this is how I would do this in class. Those of you that have had me know I mess up, so you're getting to see the mess ups too, just so you know I'm real and I'm not trying anything crazy, and some of you might experience the same thing. So it's just as important to me to learn how to fix the mistakes as it is, to learn about a lot of the major things. So let's see, it says F12 is equal to, so I'm just going to start out here, to the rental amount. So and then it says the rental amount, because the way it reads, cell F12 is equal to the rental amount, comma, which equals the number of days rented multiplied by the charge per day. So I'm going to open parentheses, and it says it's equal to the number of days rented, which is going to be right here in B6, times the charge per day, which is going to be, well, I guess I could have used this one too. Let's back up and let's try to use, the reason I want to use this days rented, wouldn't really matter, but really I want to try to use all the data from the same area. This data here, days rented, is going to be the same as up here, but again, since I'm probably using stuff over here to begin with, let's stick in that area. So I'm going to click days rented multiplied by the charge per day, which is right there, plus I'm going to close parentheses, plus and open new ones, the miles driven, which is going to be right here, multiplied by the charge per mile, which is right here. Okay, and again, by doing that, I've stayed in the same area. Okay, so I'm going to press enter. And right now it's nothing just because we don't have data inputted yet. Cell F13 is equal to the sales tax rate multiplied by the rental amount. So this is going to be equals the sales tax rate. So I'm just going to click on B19 times the rental amount, which is going to be right above us in F12. Press enter. And of course cell F14 is equal to the rental amount plus the sales tax. So this is just going to be rental amount plus, and you could also use an auto sum there if you want. Okay, then it says use the if error functions in cells H9, 10, F12, 13, 14 to test for an error value. If an error value is found, display a blank cell. Otherwise, use the appropriate formula. So let's start in H9. Now the if error, that goes all the way back over to tutorial 7. And let me find that really fast just so we can make sure that we don't mess that up. I think it was towards the back. And again, the if error thing, that's another one of those things that, you know, we really don't use that a lot. But really, in theory, it's probably a really good idea to use that, just because it's another one of those ways that we can validate our data and make sure that everything's right. Because if you really think about it, by the time a worksheet has been through the hands of a lot of people, you really don't know, and you know, it's hard to say our data is 100% of the time correct if you don't have these things in place. So what I'm going to do, the if error function information is on pages 394 and 395. So let's see. What I want to do is I want to start on H9. We go on the outside or in the front there of the formula, and we use if error. Okay. Now here's my little cheat sheet. This is what I would look at. This right here gives me a really nice way of knowing what really should be in this. If you get in the middle and you get stuck again, click on this little insert function button, and this kind of gives you an even better way to find out what in the heck goes in there. And it also puts it there for you so you don't have to worry about commas or parentheses or anything. Now to get that, just let me show you again. I clicked in front of VLOOKUP, I typed the word if error, and I opened the parenthesis. Then I'm going to go back in this word if error and press this function button, and then that way I get this if error dialog box instead of the VLOOKUP. If you need to switch dialog boxes, like if I wanted to use this for the VLOOKUP, you can click right here, back up here in the formula bar in the VLOOKUP word. That's the fastest way to switch back and forth. Okay, so in our if error function, here's our value. We don't want to mess with that because that's our formula that we know works. The value if error is the part that if they don't enter that right, or if something's not correct, it comes back with the error message. And the book says if an error value is found, display a blank cell. So what we want to do is just enter a set of parentheses, because that gives us a blank cell. It's kind of like having text with nothing in it. So just by entering two sets, not parentheses, of quotation marks, my bad, it gives us the blank cell. So I'm going to click OK. Alright, and it says we need to do that also for H10. And just to make sure I get it right, because I'm not great with the syntax, I'm going to use this dialog box. Let's see, then we go to F12. Now this one's a little bit different, but again, it doesn't really matter if you're using VLOOKUP or not. You can use this error function with anything. F13. Okay, probably can really hear the combines now, they're getting closer. We also want F14. Whoops. And that does take a little bit longer by doing it that way, but again, that's not my best use of Excel, using the syntax, so I like the dialog boxes because it gives me a hint and kind of helps walk me through the formulas. Okay, so it says test the worksheet using the following data. Really, I'm not going to mess with that, and if you want to I recommend doing that on yours if you want, but it just takes up time that we really don't have a lot of. So I'm going to skip down to number 7. It says protect the worksheet so a user can enter data only in the range B4 through B7. Do not use a password to enable protection and save the workbook. It says note, in the following steps you'll create one macro. Save your workbook before recording the macro. That way if you make a mistake when recording the macro, you can close the workbook without saving the changes and then reopen the workbook and try again. Be sure to read the list of tasks before you begin recording them. Always a good idea to read ahead. So what we're going to do here, it says protect the worksheet so user can data. And then we're going to have to unprotect it anyway, but I'll show you just for the heck of it. If you look up here on your review tab, you've got your choices. Now what I'm going to tell you, and this is important, don't ever send me a worksheet that's protected. I understand that the assignment might say it, but if it's protected, that takes me another step before I have to grade it because I have to unprotect it, and sometimes that doesn't even work. So depending on how much security, because sometimes people put too much on there without knowing. So I'm going to click on protect sheet, and it's going to say protect worksheet and protect contents of locked cells. Then we're going to say we do not want to put a password to unprotect the cells in. Then it says allow users this worksheet. We're going to click OK, and then I forgot to go back and do that with B4 and B7. But anyway, okay, so that's what that looks like. So I'm going to click unprotect sheet because we have to do that anyway, and save it. Okay, so this is a really good time at this minute. If you need to take a break, pause this video now and then come back, because what we're going to do now, and I'm not going to split this video in two like I did the other one, just because the time it takes me to upload the video and to process it and get it sent through the software. It's a lot easier just to make one big video. We took the protection off, and it says we want to add the developer tab to the ribbon. I'm on step 9 right now. So I'm going to go to the file menu, and then I want to go to options and customize ribbon, and then over here on the right hand side I just want to make sure there's a check mark in the developer tab or in the developer box, and click OK. And now I've got this nice little nifty new contextual tab there. Okay, then it says save the workbook and create a macro named. Okay, so what I want to do, and what they're talking about here, is I'm going to do a file and save as. Okay, now I've already got this saved, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this with the number 1 behind it. and save it as a regular Excel workbook. And the reason I'm doing this is because this protects me and my workbook from, so I'm going to click save. If I mess up on this macro recording and I mess up something in the workbook, all I have to do is just delete this one that I've been working on with the macro and then go back and get the one I just saved, because this one here that I'm going to run the macro on, or develop the macro with, would be a copy of it. So that's all they're doing there. And it says on number 10, create a macro named PDF bill with the shortcut key. Okay, so what we're going to do, and I think of macro, and it's kind of like making a little movie of what you're doing on Excel and playing it back whenever you want. So what I'm going to do is click record macro, and when you record a macro, it's not necessarily, I think a lot of people get this mixed up, you can't after you record it, it's not something that you're going to see the steps done as if you had done a screen video like I do here. This is something that when you play the macro or you use the macro, it just happens. You don't see the mouse move around or do anything crazy. It's just an automatic change or a step that Excel takes. So just make sure you understand that. You don't see it after you record it, and after you do it, you're not going to see it through the process anymore. It says let's save this as PDF bill with the shortcut key Control and P. We're going to store it in this workbook, and it says created, which that's really not that big of a deal. Whoops. Macro saves the customer bill as a PDF file. This is really good in your description. Please be very thorough with that so you know what this thing does. And a PDF file is a portable document formatted file which is readable in Adobe. Really nice. That's what your solution files look like, and anybody has Adobe, it's free, and this is what's going to happen when we save our customer bills. So I'm going to click OK. Now be aware, after you click OK, look up here on your developer tab, you are currently recording. Now when I first did this, I kind of freaked out because I'm like, how much time do I have? Again, this really isn't like a video in the sense of you're actually taking up seconds, and time really isn't, it doesn't matter with a macro, because again, it's only paying attention to the actual actions that you're taking when you do this. So no need to hurry, or the main thing is just remember to stop recording when you're finished, or you're going to have to do it all over again. So it says record the following macro steps. Okay, so it says select cells E3 through H15. So now Excel is saying, oh, okay, well, all right, you selected some cells. So it has kind of stopped paying attention now. Till you click or actually do something, it's not really recording anything. And it says, and set the range as the print area. So when we start doing this, now it's coming back up and saying, oh, okay, she's doing something. This is something I need to do when we run the macro. It says open the page layout dialog box, which is going to be this, or wait a minute. They actually labeled that incorrectly. It says open the page layout dialog box when really this is the page setup dialog box. So, but anyway, not a big deal. And center the output horizontally. So I'm going to click on margins and horizontal there. And it says we also want to go up to the custom header, and we want to insert your name in the right section of the custom. Oh, wrong one. I need to be on the footer. I'm going to click cancel custom footer, right section. Okay, and I'm going to click OK there. OK there. Then it says create a PDF file using the Save and Send tab in Backstage View. So I'm going to go up here to File, Save and Send. and then down here create a PDF or XPS. Then I'm going to click again. Alright, and then it says, I'm just going to leave mine on my desktop, but here's where you would specify if you want it saved a certain place all the time. Like if you've got a certain disk drive just for customer bills, this is where you need to make sure you change that right now. But since this isn't a big deal for us, because this is a homework assignment, I'm just going to let mine go to my desktop. And I'm going to save it as a PDF, and we want to give it the file name customer bill. Make sure you change that. Alright, then I'm going to click publish. Alright, so this is what your customer bill would look like. And I can just close out of that. And then it says close the Adobe Reader, which I did, and stop the macro recorder. Okay, now you've just done your, if you work through the chapter, you've done your second macro. Or if you didn't, which you really should have, this is your first. So after we've done that, it says edit the PDF bill macro to set cell A1 in the customer worksheet as the active cell when the macro stops running. Insert the following command immediately. Unless you just want to, I really don't know why I guess the book does. Oh, now my dog has decided to act crazy. Give me just a second. Let me get her calmed down. Okay. I have no idea what that was. Anyway, we're not going to spend time on this because most people will not deal with the VBA editing or programming. Even if you do make macros, normally this just isn't something, we just make a new macro. So I'm not even going to have you do step 12 unless you just really want to. Then it says we want to create a macro button, assign the PDF bill macro to the button, and then change the default label to create PDF. It says put the button in J3 through K4. So I'm going to go to the insert part on the developer tab, and I'm going to click on button, and I want J3, which is right here, through K4. And let's see, we want this button to be assigned to our PDF bill, and we're just going to click OK. And then after we've done that, you can actually change, and then make sure after you're done, if you press enter, you're going to get a new line, so you can just click outside of it. So you now literally have a button. So anytime you press this button, it's going to make a new file and make that PDF file. So do that at home just once or twice and look at that. Okay, it says enter the following data for a new customer. So the customer name here is Ed Elders, and he wants a full-size car, and he wants it for 3 days, and he drove it for 2,000 miles. That's a long way. Okay, so it says test the PDF bill macro button using the customer bill. So after we've entered that information in, look over here on the right. You guys did great. This is fantastic. All this stuff populates over here. Create PDF. Now, when we did that, this is so awesome. Love macros. Just by pushing that button, now you've got a nice customer bill that when Ed comes into your store or into the rental business and he needs his receipt, click create PDF, click print here, boom, done. And you've also saved his bill wherever you told it to save, and that's one step. That's it. Isn't that awesome? So this is, oh, I just realized, did you guys see that they misspelled discount? I think the book editor needs a little help here. I'm going to change that. Okay. Number 16 says in the documentation worksheet use the paste list command. So let's go back over here to document the defined names and their locations. So I'm just going to go down here, and it doesn't say where, and I'm going to go to my formulas tab, and then I think it's the use in formula, and I'm going to click paste names, and I'm going to choose the list. And so this is always kind of nice if you're using the names, just to have a nice or a point of reference, I guess, so you know what your names are actually defined as. Let's see, it says turn on worksheet protection for customer worksheet and turn on for the others, which again I ask that you please don't do that, just because it's another step for me. Okay, it also says to remove the developer tab from the ribbon, which you could leave this here if you wanted to, but doesn't really matter. That's just a personal thing for you. So to get rid of that, I'm just going to go back to the home tab or the file, then options, then I'm going to take the check mark out of the developer box. Then it says, this is again one of the major parts that you need to know. After you've made this macro, you have to save it. When you go to file and save, you've got to save it differently, because, and I'm going to hit save as, workbooks with macros in them are saved differently than just plain workbooks. And that's because macros, and it explains that in your book if you want to know a little bit more about it, macros can have viruses attached to them. Some people do that. I don't know how, but anyway, so if you need to know anything about that or want any information about that, just read it in your book. It's got a nice little piece in there about why you have to save it separately, and the whole virus deal. So I'm just going to click on Excel macro enabled workbook, and the icon will even look differently when you look at what you've saved. And then I'm just going to leave that as Reynolds Cahill and save. Now when you submit this to me, I don't need your regular file. If you just want to submit, and throughout the other assignments in the chapter, just submit your macro enabled file, because really I don't even need the regular one, because everything's going to be in your macro. We only saved 2 copies if you messed up on the first one. So again, I only need the macro enabled one, or the last one you worked with. So if you have any questions, like I said, email me or whatever, but this chapter really isn't too bad. It's about all I can say, and I'll have your assignments up in the next couple days, depending on kind of how this goes, and I don't think we'll have as many assignments for this chapter. So see you soon.